Part 2 of Weather on the Wild Side. This will start on page 105. Capture those weather memories. Ask a grandparent or older friend to share some memories of wild weather. Maybe they survived the blizzard of 1922, where it snowed 19 inches in Washington, D.C., a city not used to getting that much snow. Or perhaps they recall a time of drought when farmers they knew lost their crops, or when ads ran on the radio to take a bath with a friend. Make a list of questions in your weather log so you'll be prepared. Ask your friend or relative how it affected them personally, and then how it affected their community and state or province. Be sure to ask about weather technology that was available at the time and how informed people were during the weather event. Are there any newspaper clippings about the event that they could share with you? Now begin keeping photos and clippings from major weather events in your life to share 50 years from now. Have you ever noticed your cat or dog acting peculiarly right before a storm? Many believe that animals are more sensitive to changes in air pressure and can sense when a storm is approaching. In addition to pets acting nervously, birds fly low because the insects they feed on are flying lower. Cows, horses, and sheep become restless and herd together, and frogs croak loudly and don't leave the water. Tornado touchdown. When thunderstorms reach their greatest strength, they sometimes create one of our nature's most spectacular but destructive events, a tornado. The same strong rising air currents that make thunderstorms can create a spinning column of air inside the thundercloud. Most of these columns just spin until they die out, but if they touch the ground, that's when you've got a tornado or a twister. A powerful tornado can have winds up to 300 miles per hour. That's enough to blow a railroad car right off the track. Try it. Fill a 2-liter plastic soda bottle with water and tape another bottle to it, opening to opening. Swirl the water, then flip it so it drains into the bottle below. The spinning column you see in the water is a mini tornado. Weather records. More tornadoes happen in the United States than any other place on Earth. Most strike during April and May in Tornado Alley, an area from Texas and Oklahoma north to Kansas and Nebraska and east to Missouri. This huge flat area is the perfect meeting place for different types of air that don't like to mix. Warm, wet air from the Gulf of Mexico collides with cold air from the central Canada and dry air blowing in from the Rockies in the western United States, forming more than 700 tornadoes a year. The picture is of a tornado in early stages of formation in Oklahoma, May of 1973. Ask Mark, what was the worst weather event you ever had to forecast, and how did you warn people? I forecast in Vermont, where there are very few tornadoes or hurricanes. Winter weather is the most challenging, and it was never more dangerous than the January 1998 ice storm, one of the worst ice storms ever recorded in North America. 2 to 4 inches of rain froze on every exposed surface in most of Maine and Quebec, and parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York. Whole trees snapped in half, bringing down power lines. More than 100,000 people lost electricity, leaving them with no heat or lights for up to a week during the coldest time of the year. The forecast information I provided to utility companies allowed them to move equipment before the roads were closed because of the ice. With their equipment in the right locations, they could restore power to people faster, and I was able to warn people about icy roads and suggest alternate routes that were still safe. Alrighty then. Be prepared for storms. A tornado is approaching your town, and you have to think and act quickly. Where will you go? How will you keep your pet safe? What emergency supplies will you need? Do you have any possessions that are very valuable to you that you would want to take? Do you have elderly neighbors or relatives that you would want to check on? Make a plan with your family for emergency weather situations. Discuss what to do in a weather disaster, how to get up-to-date weather information, where to store emergency supplies, and how to make sure that all family members will be safe. Put together a weather emergency kit, candles and dry matches, flashlights and extra batteries, a transistor radio, canned food with a manual or battery-operated can opener, and plenty of bottled water. No matter where you live, this emergency kit will come in very handy. Better stay tuned. Do you know the difference between a watch and a warning? A watch is issued first. First, it reports there's a possibility for a storm or other potentially dangerous weather event, like a flood, to hit your area within a stated number of hours. Keep listening to emergency weather broadcasts for updates. A warning is issued when the weather event has actually been spotted and will hit your neighborhood in a stated number of hours. Everyone should seek emergency shelter when a storm warning is issued, and officials advise you to do so. For emergency bulletins, check the Weather Channel or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's weather radio stations. See page 137. Or tune into a local radio station. In Canada, check the Meteorological Service of Canada's Weather Radio. See page 138. Ask Mark. When a bad weather event is heading your way, do you get called into work? Who takes care of your family? If there is a serious weather situation, sometimes I need to stay longer at work or go in earlier. During Hurricane Floyd in September 1999, I went to work early. I had to use my chainsaw to cut through 2 fallen trees to get down the road, and then I had to read some of my weather information with a flashlight because the power was out at the office. My family is very experienced with camping equipment and heating with a wood stove, so I feel confident they'll be comfortable and safe when I'm called in. I do get some weather information at home, so I could still forecast even if I couldn't get into my office, but this has never happened to me in 20 years of forecasting. Storms that start at sea. Sometimes a cluster of big thunderstorms, called a tropical disturbance, forms over warm ocean water. If the winds pick up speed to 40 miles per hour, it turns into a tropical storm. Once winds reach 74 miles per hour, the tropical storm officially becomes a hurricane. Once the storm is over land, it starts to lose power, but winds from storms over the ocean can push a lot of water up against the shore, causing coastal flooding. This storm surge is the most damaging part of a hurricane. The picture is the storm surge of Hurricane Camille in August 1969. It pushed these huge ships in Mississippi way up on the shore. Forecasters getting it right rules. Hurricanes are very difficult to predict, even for the experts, but there are some things to keep in mind. These are the necessary ingredients for a hurricane to form: warm ocean waters at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit, thunderstorms, and powerful winds. Florida and Texas and south to Mexico and the Caribbean islands are struck by hurricanes coming from the east. In the Gulf of Mexico and on the east coast, the storms almost always come from the south. Hurricanes may be very powerful, but they are also very fussy. They must have light winds around them, so as the darker storm clouds approach, winds will be light. You should never have the chance to try these rules. However, because the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida helps local governments issue evacuation alerts before the storm arrives, follow their advice. In Canada, hurricanes are rare, but the eastern provinces can be affected, and residents can stay informed through the Canadian Hurricane Center in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Quick take forecasts. The ocean temperature measures 77 degrees Fahrenheit. It's almost noon and you're feeling hot in your black t-shirt. The barometer is falling quickly, and you just heard the National Weather Service issue a hurricane watch. Winds are light, but you see dark clouds over the ocean. Should you go water skiing today? No. The sea temperature is warm and the winds are light. Weather hurricanes love. A hurricane watch means people along the coast may need to head to a safer place. Water skiing is out. Weather lore. Here's an old Florida saying to help you remember when the hurricane season occurs. June, too soon. July, stand by. August, beware you must. September, time to unlimber. October, not over. November, remember. Oh my goodness. Ask Mark, why did the U.S. National Weather Service start naming hurricanes? Using names help to clearly identify storms, which is very important to ships traveling in the open ocean. If there is more than one storm, names like Hurricane Floyd and Hurricane Bob are much harder to confuse than numbers, Storm 1, Storm 2, etc. Would you fly right into a hurricane? Yes, if you were a hurricane hunter, part of the United States Air Force Reserve. These pilots are very brave. They fly their airplanes right into hurricanes and tropical storms. Their planes carry special weather sensors to gather critical information regarding a hurricane's strength and direction. The data is sent via satellite to the forecasters at the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. Here, hurricane experts use the data to create an accurate picture of the storm so they can make a better forecast of what the storm is likely to do next. Weather words. Hurricane comes from the West Indian word hurricane, which means big wind. A hurricane that occurs over the Pacific Ocean is called a typhoon, from the Chinese word typhon, or great wind. So a typhoon and a hurricane are the same thing, they're just called by different names in different parts of the world. Typhoon damage to a coconut plantation in the Caroline Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Ask Mark, do we ever over-forecast, causing people to evacuate and make emergency preparations for storms that never happen? When weather forecasters issue watches and warnings, they are thinking about people's safety and how unpredictable the weather can sometimes be. If there is even a chance that a hurricane or tornado will hit, or that a winter storm will cause heavy ice or snow, then it's important to warn people that conditions may become dangerous, giving them time to prepare. And the early warnings have been successful. From 1916 to 1954, the average number of deaths from tornadoes in the United States was 225 people each year. Since 1955, the average has dropped to about 100. Meteorologists work very hard at making forecasts of severe weather more accurate. I think there might be one more page. Be a meteorologist. This is an emergency broadcast. There's a hurricane on the way, and people are turning into local weather stations for information. What are the weather conditions? What should people do in their homes to stay safe? What supplies should they be sure to have on hand, or should they evacuate? Write a script to be the broadcast over the local TV and the radio stations to keep the residents of your town safe during this weather emergency. This ends on page 114.